Hey guys, it's Anthony from AMH Audio Productions. 2 videos in 2 weeks, doing pretty good. We're on a streak. So let's keep it up. So today we're going to discuss stage fright, anxiety going up on your first show. We're going to talk about how we can handle that and become better at managing it. Almost anyone I know has dealt with stage fright, anxiety getting up on the stage. Even some of the bands that have been doing it for years. I'll talk to the people after a show. They'll say they still deal with it, but they're better at handling it. And you can even translate this to other things that involves being in front of a crowd, like public speaking. Maybe you're in an art gallery presenting your artwork, something of that nature, where you're in front of a crowd. It's a lot of us deal with anxiety being in front of crowds. There are some people that don't. Some people strive with doing that, and that's amazing, but a lot of us don't. So I wanted to give some tips. Hopefully you guys appreciate these tips, and hopefully it helps you out in the future. So before we get into these tips though, I'm going to give a couple examples of my stage fright and how it has been kind of bad for me. I'm a lot better at it now, but used to be pretty bad. So I'm going to discuss a guitar competition at a local music store that's here in town. And I went to it, was playing a song that I'd written for my wife actually. Things were going pretty well, and then I messed up about halfway through the song. Now, instead of going on and kind of making up something to kind of fill that little void so it doesn't seem like it's obvious I messed up, instead I stopped. Instead of continuing on, I stopped. And we're going to discuss this later about how you can recover from these mistakes. Those tips there will be mainly for guitar. As far as drums and everything go, I don't know too much about that, but I know more about guitar, so we'll go over stuff about that. But yeah, instead of continuing, I stopped. You don't ever want to stop. You want to find a way to continue, and we'll go over that later. There's another example. I feel this one was worse for me, not necessarily anyone noticing that I messed up, but it was worse for me. Like, my anxiety was just through the roof. I was in a band and we were playing pretty far out from where we normally do, and we were like the first band up, I think. So I would typically not be as stressed out typically with the first band. Not everyone's there, but there was a ton of people there, more than I'm used to. Stage fright kind of got me, and I started messing up a lot, and I felt they were obvious, but no one seemed to notice I was messing up, but they were pretty bad. I felt terrible afterwards after we were done performing. We got off stage, I felt terrible. I just kept putting myself down. That's another thing. Don't put yourself down. That putting yourself down and stressing yourself out over these things isn't going to help. It's just going to make your stress and anxiety even worse. So don't do that. Trust me. Most of the people don't notice you make a mistake, and if they do, it's the human element. For all you know, sometimes those mistakes can sound pretty cool. So let's get into the tips part of the video. For me, one thing that helps me is being social. I'm not a very social guy. I'm pretty quiet, pretty much don't talk very much. But when I get to a show, one thing I do is I might go around and talk to a lot of the people that are there. At least at a local show. If you're at a more national show, which I don't really see why you'd be at a national show when you're just starting out. But if you're at a local show and you're starting out, one good thing to do is maybe be social, talk to the other bands, talk to some of the people that are coming to see the bands. Just get to know everyone. It helps ease your mind a little bit. It gets you a little bit more on friendly terms with these people. I haven't really had an experience where people have been rude to me for just trying to get to know them. Usually they're pretty cool. But if you do happen to meet that one person who's kind of a jerk, just rub it off. Just don't worry about it. It's nothing to worry about. There's always going to be some jerks out there. Next tip is find an outlet to ease your mind. So I guess this would be more like when you're getting towards the show, not while you're at the show. So you're preparing for the show with your band, but maybe find something that isn't quite along the lines of music or whatever you're doing, and do something with that. So maybe if you're into video games, play some video games. If you're into art, draw some artwork. do something to kind of take your mind off the music, and so you don't focus on it as much. I know it's hard to not focus on the music, but one thing I've learned is you got to take a break. You got to know when to take a break. And especially if your stress is bad and your anxiety is bad, that's when you really need to take a break. You really need to calm down, ease yourself a little bit, and try and focus on something else for a little bit to calm yourself down. And don't overthink things. Trust me, that's one thing that kills me. That's probably one of the reasons, like the two experiences I mentioned with myself, that's probably what caused most issues was overthinking things. One of the things I overthink a lot of is counting. So like I'm playing a part and we'll go through it. Like let's say we play a part 5 times or 6 times. I'll start counting in my head. So while I'm up there on stage, instead of like being, having some kind of stage presence, I'm just up there 1, 2, 3, 4, doing that. And I'm obviously not saying it to where anyone can hear, but it's obvious I'm counting everything. It's not very good for stage presence. People are probably getting turned off by it. Don't overthink things. Remember, you got other band members there, so try and follow them as well. Don't only focus on yourself, follow them. That's something I learned, is as long as you got pretty good, consistent people you're working with, even if they're stressed out, like, you work together, you'll get through the songs fine, and it'll sound good. So don't stress out about it. Next thing, and you're going to hear this a lot, practice. You got to practice. Now, don't practice all the time. Like I said, you need to learn when to take a break. But practice as much as you can without, like, killing yourself or wearing yourself out, without stressing yourself out. That way you know you got the parts down pat. So if you're just playing them at home and you don't got the other members there, you can play through it without having really too many issues. And like I said, remember, mistakes happen. They're always going to happen. Learn to play through them. So let's talk about playing through these mistakes. So let me grab a guitar, actually. It's not plugged in. My guitar is indeed not plugged in, but I'm just using it as an example. So let's say there's a part of a song you mess up on where you're playing chords. This is probably out of tune too, so sorry if it sounds out of tune, if you can even hear it. You're playing some chords, you lose track of where you're at. Well, one thing you can do is maybe play open chords and just keep the timing down, and that's all you really have to do. And I'm sorry, I didn't clip this when I tuned it, so the string is bugging the piss out of me. So you can remember, open notes can be your friend when you messed up and you're trying to keep track of where you're at. Now, bear in mind, this is mostly with rhythm guitarists, or if you're playing a rhythm part or something that isn't very lead worky. So remember, open notes are your friends. So you're playing chords, maybe play open chords. If it doesn't sound good, don't stress out too much about it. One other thing you can do is just some palm muting on an open note. And also, this all depends on what kind of song you're playing. So you don't want to like play this when it doesn't fit the song you're going for. Now, if you're doing a lot of chugging during the part, do some open chugging. Ain't gonna hurt anything. It will sound a little off, but unless like you're super famous and everyone knows who you are and knows your songs by heart, they're probably not gonna notice that you messed up. They might if you like give some weird looks, if you act a little strange on stage, like I said, like I do, if I'm lose track of where I'm counting. But as long as you still got that stage presence, then you'll be fine. A good example of this is one of my friends, Joey, when I was in band with him. It was like the first show we had played, and he didn't have a lot of time to practice beforehand. And he just started doing a lot of open notes because he couldn't remember exactly what to play because he hadn't had a lot of time to learn the songs. And let alone, for some reason, we extended the song like probably another 2 minutes. And it was like some kind of weird breakdown. People were really into it, so he just kept doing it. So he just sitting there like, and it worked. It sounded fine. and no one noticed he made a mistake. And even if they did, they're really into it. So those are a few things you can take from the guitar in a way. Like I said, I'm not an expert at drums or really any instrument. I'd say I'm pretty decent at guitar. But as far as drums go, if you make a mistake on drums, one thing I've noticed, at least most of the drums I've worked with, is they'll do kind of a drum fill until they can get back on beat. Maybe something of that nature will help you out. Because really with drumming, the main thing is keeping on time. Even if you play the wrong cymbal or you hit the snare instead of a tom or whatever, I don't think it would be too noticeable unless you go off time. Probably did a jump cut there. But yeah, if your scene's anything like mine, chances are everyone's pretty supportive of each other. And I mean, if your scene isn't like that, where people aren't really supporting each other the best, that stinks. But maybe you should start looking at doing shows outside of your area. Then it might be a better idea. I've seen people do that, where people come to our area and play instead of theirs because there's a lot of drama in their area, or even people from our area just aren't getting along with some of the bands in our area, and they'll go play outside of our area just so they can avoid the drama. But yeah, that's pretty much all the tips I can think of. If I think of any more, I might make another video. If you guys can think of any, put them down there in the comments. I'll put my social medias in the link of the video. If you use Twitter, I don't use it much. I mainly use Facebook, but I got Twitter, Facebook, Instagram for all that, just for this. So if you guys want to follow me on that, you can. If you want to like the video, you can. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.